afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well.
Or good morning. I mean, it is afternoon, but it
You can
could be
say good
good
morning
morning
if
for
you
some
like. To me,
people.
that would not be appropriate.
It would be incorrect. But I'm guessing some of the people here, it is good morning. I hope so.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure
Yeah.
it is. Let's find
Otherwise, it
out
sounds really silly.
who.
What? Good evening to Greta.
Let's just hear from everyone. Let's hear your appropriate greeting based on where
Yes.
you are.
Let us know. After we've got some afternoons. Yes. We've got an Ecuadorian
Good
morning.
morning. Good afternoon. Come on. We've got an evening from
Look at
Jane.
that.
You're back. How can you stand us twice in a day? Denmark.
There we go.
We've got a Thailand.
We've got
Welcome.
some mornings, we've got some afternoons, we've got some evenings, we've got all the things.
Broadstairs, Ankarad. Broadstairs, that's only about an hour and a half from me.
Oh, lovely. Broadstairs. Fancy.
Yeah,
I
gotta
went
love
there when I was
Broadstairs.
9.
It's got some nice sea views in Broadstairs, I'll tell you that.
Does indeed. I remember it well from my youth, which was only 3,000 years ago.
Long gone, mate.
I know, I
So I'm
know,
going to say hello. Hello, I'm Will.
I know.
I'm
He's
in.
typing, he's reading and typing at the same time, and he's in Cambridge. Hi, I'm Harry, and I type while I write.
You typing that?
No, I almost did though.
See, Ham, if you're not getting any sound, I think that will be. I've only heard that from one person, so I'm guessing that's going to be an issue with you. You might,
Maybe you
basically,
plugged your
Zoom.
headphones in and forgotten to unplug them. I've done that before.
Maybe your Bluetooth attached to your headphones, which you didn't turn off from the audiobook you're listening to, like me.
Yeah. Or maybe it's attached to your car
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
blaring out in your car. Who
Oh,
knows?
right. Yeah, yeah. Your car's Bluetooth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Could happen.
Exactly. I don't know.
All
Anyway,
right.
what are we here to do today, Will?
That's a really good question. Has. Let me let me tell you.
Tell me. Tell me with a screen.
Let me share. I'm going to share my screen. There we go.
There we go.
Can you see it?
I can see it, and they will soon be able to see it when the magic happens. The magic's about to happen.
Evelina, can you do some magic to the screen?
Here comes magic.
Lovely stuff. Oh, not just me. They
Oh,
need to
that's
see
nice. That'll
Harry
do.
too. Not just Will. No one wants just Will on their screen.
Look at that. But they can still hear me, so it's
They can
fine.
still, they can. They can. Okay, welcome everybody back to school. 5 steps to digitizing your classroom with Harry and I and special guest, legend of digital classrooms, Russell Stannard. Quick question to the chat box. Who here considers their classroom in any way digital? Who here considers their classroom in any way digital? Question mark. Not yours, Jane. Okay. Maya? No, no, really, none at all.
In some
Renata,
way.
you were here this morning as well, Renata, I think. You do? Good, 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 good. Okay, so let's have, and one more actually. On a scale of 1 to 7, no, on a scale of 1 to 10, that's going to be annoying then. I won't be annoying. On a scale of 1 to 10, how digital is your classroom? Not in terms of being fully digital, but in terms of having a good blended, really sort of slick digital experience for your students.
I'm going with a 6.7.
We've got some eights. That's really great to see. We've got some really nice, really great confidence. I'm glad there's no zeros actually. That's really
There was
comforting.
1 0
Oh,
because I
really?
think electrical issues. If you teach in the open with no electricity, then 0. Well,
Yeah,
that
fair
is
enough.
true.
Yeah, well, that's the dream, isn't it, really? Wonderful. Okay, so I'll tell you more about the event in a minute. But before we start our session today, I've got a couple of things I'd like to share with you. Harry?
Oh, I'll share here.
Harry's
You
going to
can
share
move
this.
your mouth and I'll do the noises. It's all
Okay.
good.
Evelina, could you please move it onto the scene with Harry and me? If you don't, I'm sure there's a reason why not. Harry, you go ahead.
I'll just go ahead. It might be something to do with the streaming thing. Because by the way, we are also live on LinkedIn and Facebook. So there you go.
Absolutely.
What you can see right now is a lovely visual of Will and I talking on this podcast, in fact. However, this is a live version, and the version you can see is the recorded version, where you can get 17 episodes of wonderful, interesting, exciting, and glorious chats between myself, Will, and a number of guests where we talk about a number of issues like smartphones, the role of the ELT teacher, motivation, skills for life, bullying. We talk about becoming an ELT author. We talk about C2. We talk about everything. It's basically your staff room, but in a podcast, and you can get it from whichever podcast platform you like to use.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Harry. I would never be able to say that better than you, so I'm not going to try. But I am going to move on to another thing I'd like to tell you about, which is this event. You might already know about this. Put it in the chat box if you've heard about it. Yes or no. Have you heard about this? This is a brand new initiative we started this year. A few years ago, we put a call out to any and all teachers around the world, teacher trainers specifically, who would like to be part of the New Voices event, which we're holding on the 25th of September. We put that out, I think, in July, and then it closed at the end of July. And now we have selected 11 talks from those. We had hundreds of excellent submissions. It was really, really touching to see it. There were hundreds of passionate, knowledgeable, experienced, and very talented speakers in that set of submissions. And I'm really, really proud to show you the lineup of this event. These 11 talks will be showing on the 25th of September. You can register for this now, by the way, macmillarenglish.com. We've got a huge range of topics. We didn't choose it with a particular academic area in mind. We wanted to leave that completely open. And as a result, we've got a really eclectic mix of interesting teacher training sessions. One brief we had was that it was practical. So each of these talks will be practical. They'll give you things that you can walk away from that session with and use in your classrooms. And their talks really are wonderful. These 11 specific talks are going to be really exciting. I hope you can make it. There's a link in the chat box and a link somewhere else. Also, just so you know, we've got a whole area of our website dedicated to kind of going back to school digitally. So if you go to macmillarenglish.com, it will be, I think there's a banner right on the front page. You just click that banner and it'll take you to a page, or you can click another link. Actually, it's on the screen now. Go to that link and you will find a whole set of resources and articles to help you get back to school digitally. We're focusing on that this year. We've got all sorts of other stuff on our website that will help you out with lots of other things that you might need to consider when you're going back to school. But this area of the website is dedicated to helping people digitize their classrooms, because I think we've got a huge spectrum of people who are at one end really great. They've really integrated digital, and the other end, people who just are not willing to, afraid to, don't really feel like it's beneficial. So we've got an area of our website dedicated to sort of bring those two polars a bit closer together. Okay.
I know that guy.
I know that guy. I know him really well. I'm very lucky to know him. This is Harry Waters. He's my co-host for the pod. We've been doing our first season this whole year, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with him on this. I knew it would be a pleasure. I knew it would be great fun. And we've done, as he said, 17 amazing episodes. So I really hope you enjoy them. Harry's a award-winning teacher trainer. He's the founder of Renewable English, which is teacher training for helping you integrate environmental issues and I suppose curating climate activists, I suppose, is a good way to put it. He wants sort of a worldwide army of people fighting the climate change. He's also an ambassador for us for loads of different things. Specifically, lately, he's been our ambassador for Changemakers. I won't go into that now, but there's loads to learn about. Changemakers World.live. Changemakersworld.live. He's a lead trainer for 2 Elton Award-winning projects, including Changemakers, which was just nominated, and a 2-time speaker at the Change Now Climate Summit in Paris. Welcome, Harry.
Thank you. Hello.
Okay, so let's move on now to our special guest, Mr. Stannard. Are you there, Russell?
I hope I am. I think I'm going to be put live on the screen. Can you hear me?
I
I
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Lovely.
I think we haven't got the. There's a bit of an issue, I think, with showing all three of us at the same time as a slide at the moment.
Okay, right.
But I hope there we go.
Oh, there we go.
That's lovely.
Oh,
So
I'm
you've
glad
seen
I
the slide
wasn't
of
picking
Russell
my
already.
nose.
Hi, Russell. Welcome
Hi, good to see you
to.
both.
Good to see you too, mate. So Russell is a legendary guru who lives in this sort of digital mountain in space. And that's where he sort of runs his website, teachertrainingvideos.com. He's been working with us for years, since I learnt this morning, since the 1990s. He's been working with Macmillan on loads of different projects, starting with Macmillan in Spain. Russell, you said?
Correct, yeah. And then
What?
I worked on the original version of Inside Out. I wrote photocopyable materials for the first version of Inside Out as
Do you
well.
know what? Actually, the inside out photocopyable component to that course was an absolute godsend for me.
Yeah, I liked that was a great project to work on. That was as well. That was a really lovely project to work on.
Just there's lots of every page is an innovation. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, very good book.
80,000 plus YouTube subscribers to his various YouTube channels. He's had various awards from Times Higher, Westminster University, Elton's, and he does lots of training on digitising. Welcome, Russell. It's great to have you.
Lovely to be with you both. Yeah.
Also has lots of double letters in his name.
Very
Loads.
true.
Four.
Something that we've worked out today. We didn't know this before. I've never noticed it before. I've never thought about it before.
I
know,
love
isn't it
letters.
mad? So, I mean, if you don't include the ones that are actually paired next to each other, there's four or five. Two
Five.
S's,
There's
two
the
L's, two
R's, of
N's, two
course.
A's, two R's.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very economical with letters. Let's say that. Okay, Harry, over to you. I'm going to stop babbling.
Yes, let's stop babbling, and I'm gonna ask Russell a question because I have so many questions for Russell. But my first one is, as a digital person in your digital mountain in space, apparently, what is your current favorite digital thing?
Yeah, good question actually. And there is one because see, though Will thinks I'm in sort of living in space in this digital mountain, I actually
I
live
don't
in
really think that, Russell. I was only joking. It's not weird.
I'm in Poland. I'm learning Polish, and obviously a lot of these technologies that I talk about and show on my website, I use them. And my favorite one is naturalreaders.com. And I'll quickly tell you why. And if I get a chance, I'll quickly show it to you. I like natural readers. Number one, you don't have to log in. You can just go straight onto the site. But what you can do is you can take any text that from anywhere. You can type it in or you can paste it in. Choose the language. So it works in English, it works in Spanish, it works in French, it works in Chinese, it works in all sorts of language. Click on play and it will read the text out in a perfect, it's almost perfect. They're really very difficult to just, perfect accent. The accents are amazing.
Really?
So for me, this is amazing because I can take a text that I'm trying to learn in Polish and I can paste it in and I can read and listen to it being read to me at the same time. And for me personally, that's something I really like doing when I'm learning languages. Of course, it's also brilliant for pronunciation. If you've got some difficult words or words where the stress changes and you just want to repeat them, you can practice them. You could even use this as a teacher. I know teachers use this because on my website, people comment to me. A lovely, particularly in English, for example, there is a whole range of accents. You can have English, American English, Welsh English, Indian English. Okay. So you get a whole range of Canadian, all different versions of English. And so it's a great idea, for example, just to play a piece of text and then say to students, okay, was that Australian English? Was that English English? Was that American English? And you could even choose the voices. Shall I quickly give you a taster?
Exactly. Please do. So pop it up.
So
Just while
let's
you're
just
doing
jump.
that,
Yeah, go on.
just while you're doing that, I want to make the same comment that I made in our first session today because I think it's really important. So, all of my comments are really important. You'll realize this, everybody. All of my comments are very important, but this one especially. So, I work with people from all over the world, and I think a lot that's becoming almost a given that you're not going to just work with people in your locality, even if they're not from where you're working. You're going to work with people with various different accents of English, and not just English as a first language. They're going to be people who are using English as a second or other language as well. So you've got, for example, I work with Evelina, and she is from Poland. She speaks English beautifully. But I think if I were maybe someone from Brazil speaking Portuguese, but English with a Portuguese accent, it's still really important that Evelina gets accustomed to hearing that accent as well.
Exactly.
You were saying
Bill,
that
can I just quickly interrupt you? When it's sharing, just to let you know, it's only sharing through to the host and the co-host. It doesn't seem to be sharing through to the participants. Can people see this screen? Because it's telling me, it's saying you're seeing it live to everyone now. Lovely. Okay, brilliant. So, I mean, the point that you were just about to bring up then, sorry to interrupt you because it's a really valid point. And just to let you know, Will, you could actually do that on this website, okay?
Right.
So you can paste in a text in English and choose a French accent or a German accent, and that will also work. Okay.
So in English with a French accent.
Exactly. And that is very interesting because obviously we've got, you know, English as a lingua franca and we want to be exposed to different accents. If I was to click here and just quickly grab a bit of text about myself, okay? So if I just copy that text.
Handsome fellow, just
and then I'm just going to click on the screen here, close that down. And watch this, guys. I've not even logged in. I'm just going to paste in that text. So I click here onto the screen and paste the text in. Okay. Now I'm going to click here and I've got all these languages. I've got absolutely masses of languages. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a nice British accent since I'm British myself, and I'll choose Sonia. So let's listen to Sonia reading this text out.
Welcome to the webinar, Sonia.
Okay. Okay. So let's see how Sonia does.
Russell Stannard is a multi-award-winning educational technologist and founder of.
Okay, so you can see how easy it will just literally read out the text for me. Okay, now I can switch to another language as well. So if I
www.teachertrainingvideos.com. He has more than 80,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel.
So for example, if I clicked over here and said, well, actually, I want to hear a different accent. Let's say I want to go for, let's just have a look. Let's go for a US accent and we'll choose Davies. So now I'm going to choose Davies, and Davies is now going to read out the text.
He has more than 80,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. He received awards from the British Council Eltons, the Times Higher, and the University of Westminster for...
Okay, absolutely fantastic. Now let's just take another example, Will. Let's imagine, for example, I've got a bit of difficulty with some pronunciation. And what I'll do is I'll use the example I used this morning because it's interesting because the stress changes if we use the word photographer, photo and photograph. Okay, photographer. So we get that change in stress with these three words. Okay, so let's just do that. Okay, so we've got photograph, photographer and photo. And what we do is let's go for a different accent. So let's come down here and you'll notice we've got loads of English accents.
Can we have Arabic? Can we have Arabic? I just
I think first of all I just want to demonstrate how you can use this for pronunciation. So if I clicked on photo,
photographer, photograph.
And that is very clever. It knows to change the stress. Okay, now that is AI for you. That's the power of AI. Now, one thing you suggested to me this morning was, well, Russell, can we hear other accents reading out the content? Now, in theory, you can, because the way the voice AI works is it should be able to do this. So I should, in theory, be able to choose an accent. Let's try it. I've never done this. Okay, so this is live, guys. Let's see. We're going to get Rami to read out those words. Let's see if it works. And let me just have a listen here. I'm not sure if Rami's going to be good because Rami's going to read from right to left. Well, you might have made life a bit complicated by choosing an Arabic voice. Okay, so I suggest actually that we try something else because I think that wouldn't work simply because of the way it's going to read the text. But if I come down and choose French and I'll put Celeste on. Let's see if we hear the English words being read out with a French accent.
Photo. Photographer. Photographe.
Okay, now I think it would work much better if you used the text, okay? But it does, in fact, in the break between the podcasts, I did actually give it a quick test, and it does work pretty well, okay?
Wonderful.
What tends to happen a little bit is the accents are slightly exaggerated, perhaps more than they would be in reality. But it's a great technology, guys. Great for pronunciation. Great to use in class. Get your students to write a little story and then play it to the rest of the classroom, and they can choose what accent they want. Very
Brilliant.
interesting.
Absolutely brilliant, Russell. Are you using that with your language learning?
Tak, naprawdę, bo jest bardzo, bardzo, bardzo przydatny, naprawdę, yes. It's very useful, basically. Yes, all the time. I use it literally daily. It's really
Brilliant.
helping my Polish a lot, yes.
I even used it today between sessions to read back something that I'd written myself to see if it sounded like complete nonsense or not. And it didn't. So I was happy.
There we are. Harry, so was that you writing in Spanish or writing in English?
Writing in English, because my
Right,
Spanish
okay.
writing, mira, no está mal,
Sí, entiendo.
but puede ser mucho mejor. So my Spanish writing isn't great, but it could be much better. My English writing also could be much better.
And mine too.
So that's a quick question. I hear there are 5 steps, or at least 5 ways, 5 means to adapt to digitizing. We haven't even started with one. I think we should maybe go to number 1.
Okay, so can I share the screen again, just because I want to quickly, I'm going to jump over to this. I think I've got my slides here. I'll make sure I've got the audio on. Hopefully this is going to work. Guys, can you see my screen okay?
Just need to give Evelyn, there we go.
Right, great. Okay, brilliant. Right, lovely. So off we go. So I'm gonna tell you a little story. I know you like stories, you guys. So I'm going to start with a little story. I went to Krakow to study Polish. This was actually quite a while back now. It was just before COVID. And the teacher was one of the best teachers I've ever had, to be honest with you. And in the class, we hardly used any technology at all. We did use YouTube. We watched quite a lot of videos, and then we would be working in groups and pairs. It was a very dynamic class, lots of getting up and running around. I absolutely loved it. But one thing is that literally in week 1, we were introduced to the platform that goes along with the book. So the book was called Krok po Kroku. It has a platform, and that platform basically supports the book that we were using in the class. And this is really, really interesting. This was a real eye-opener to me, because before then, I'd never really taken much interest in these platforms. I never realized how good they could be. But what I really noticed is that it really is a game changer. Because, see, what our teacher was doing was, the first great thing was that it was just go home, log into the platform, and suddenly I had access to all the material that we'd taught in the day, any listenings, any videos, anything, loads of additional material. Obviously, the teacher didn't have to prepare anything. The teacher could set homework for me to do. So, if we'd done the past simple in that lesson, or we'd done perhaps a topic, say environment, then we could be looking, I could do activities related to that for homework. Yeah. The teacher would just simply, I guess, click on the things that they wanted me to do, and that would be the homework. Now, the great thing for me personally was, firstly, that meant I got immediate feedback on what I was doing. Okay. But then secondly, obviously, I'm very motivated to learn Polish. I'm living in Poland. I need to learn the language. And so it also allowed me to go or to carry on and do some extra activities, because there was additional activities, so that you could sort of do extra work. So let's say you were doing the past simple, you could choose extra activities and do even additional activities. Now, from the point of view of the teacher, this was phenomenal, because the teacher would know every day what we had done or what we hadn't done. And obviously there were students in the class that didn't do the homework, but the teacher's able to track absolutely everything. Now, what our teacher was doing was not going through the activities in the lesson afterwards, but simply taking the data and saying, right, I noticed you had a problem with this, or you've had a problem with that. Let's go back over it again. So it was really, really good formative assessment for us, and also great information, great data for the teacher. So I really, and this is actually true, I paid for an extra 6 months access to the platform when the course finished, which I was allowed to do, because I realized, wow, I want to carry on using this platform. And so you know, it was part of the course, and I was able to extend my my use of it. And I think from that moment, I really began to become aware of just why these platforms are so useful. Now, there are some disadvantages, and I think it's a really important thing to discuss, really, because see, you've got to learn to use the platform, okay? Particularly, you know, if you're a teacher and you're going to start setting homework and maybe even using it in the classroom, and you've got to know where to set homework, you've got to know where to open up your class, you've got to know how to share the code with the students so that they can join you in your particular class. It's very, very easy. It's normally just a simple code which each class has got. You share that code with the students, they log in, and then they're in the system, okay? And then, of course, there is the process, and we'll probably talk about this during this discussion today, of how you kind of merge the platform into your teaching and learning, because it's a process. It's not something that's going to happen immediately. It will be something you get more and more confident of. And obviously, we need to get our teachers on board with this. We do need to get the teachers to see how useful these technologies are. I took a couple of screenshots from the Macmillan product. It's a meme, yeah. And you know, here is an example where you can see that I've logged in, and I can just simply click on this add button here if I wanted to set some homework for. So I'm actually into a class, okay, and I can just click on add, choose the homework that I want to set the students. So I literally say, right, add on this one, add this activity, and then that's it. The students then have got access to that content. So when they go home and log in, it will clearly show them exactly what homework they've got to do. So it's really, really, really useful in terms of actually setting up homework. And very useful for the teacher, for the students and for the teacher, is that the student gets a notification when homework's been set. So when they come home and log in, it will give them immediately access to the homework that they've been set through a notification. And you can set it as well that the teacher, if you want, gets a notification when the homework has been completed. So it's a great tracking device, and it's great in terms of kind of being able to, you know, keep an eye on what the students are doing, what they've completed, what they haven't, etc. So I find this really, really useful. And of course, the data after is so useful because you can revise and review, and you can do it on an individual basis. So you can see, okay, let's look at individual students and see how they're getting on, or you can look as a class. Okay, 80% of the students got that question right, 50% got that one right. Maybe we need to do some more work on it. So I really find these platforms useful. I think whatever book you're using, whether it's a Macmillan book or not, that would be the first place that I would suggest going, because I just think, honestly, if you was to invest the time to learn the technology, it's going to save you time in the long run. It's going to make the lessons much more engaging, or particularly it's going to make them more linked. It's going to really build a strong link between what you do in the classroom and what you do for homework. And that would be, in my opinion, my starting point in terms of using technology. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I don't know if you've got any questions on that point, but I think these technologies are quite interesting.
I've got a question.
Yep.
I've got so many questions, Russell. I'll start with this one though. So, you know, as a teacher, I've used these platforms, and I must admit they are improving dramatically. You know, 5-6 years ago, they were really quite difficult, and that initial investment of time was a lot more than it is now. I think they're much more user-friendly in general. I actually have it for one of my classes as well, the Macmillan Education Everywhere. But anyway, that's beside the point. Course books are massive. Course books have so much stuff in them. And like some, maybe not students, but some teachers are already kind of overwhelmed by this course book that, you know, oh no, the parents have paid loads of money, we have to get to the end of it. How can we make sure that teachers aren't like overawed with stress with this extra digital platform? I'm doing extra very much in inverted commas.
I mean, it's a really fair question. And, you know, there is some initial investment. There's definitely some initial investment in learning to use these platforms, and then obviously building up a strong connection with what you're doing in the course book. I think the important thing to remember is that this is this is something that really is connected to your course book. So, you know, if you're, for example, doing activities in the class with your students and your students want to revise those activities or listen to the listenings again, I mean, that would have been impossible 20 years ago. You know, they want to watch the video that you've shown them in class that you've used on the platform. Then, of course, they've got access to all of that material. So I think that is really powerful because you haven't got to do any of that. It's all there for them. You're almost opening up a little world of studies and of learning, okay? I definitely am not against course books. I really like course books and they've got a real value. But of course, there are certain benefits sometimes to using digital outside of the classroom. We covered some of them, Harry, you know, talking about the feedback, talking about the immediacy of the information you get back, talking also about the variety of activities that you do because you've got the audio and you've got the videos on there, and you've got pronunciation activities and listening comprehension. So you've got lots of perhaps more variety than you could if you were just using the course book. But also keep in mind, often what you're doing, you know, it's that link that's really important because that content is so much linked to what you're doing in the course, in the book also. And remember, really important, this is free. If you've got the book, normally the platform comes along with it. So, you know, why not make use of it?
And they are usually very much linked. And it is that it's that a stitch in time saves nine is a famous saying in English. You know, if you do put that little bit of effort in at the start, it will pay dividends afterwards. You know, those, you know, let's say it's an hour, let's say it's 2 hours, let's say you really struggle and it's 3 hours, you'll get that time back in the first term within the classroom, within your correction time, within your just absolutely everything.
And that also what's happening within those 3 hours is not just sort of this black hole of time that you need to go through. You're going through a learning process yourself as a teacher, aren't you? You're learning how by logging in and learning how to share materials with your students, you're learning how to use this platform. And it's, you know, one point I made earlier as well is that if I download an app now, or I go onto a website or a web app or sort of thing, or it's a platform of some kind, the companies that make these things are so aware that the UX, the experience of the user, and the usability of the interface has got to be absolutely tip-top and absolutely simple. It's got to be very high. It's got to be high quality in terms of its speed, the layout, the colors, and the way that they display information to you on usually a dashboard. It's got to be so good. But any software, not even teaching software, any software has got to be excellent user experience. And these are, I mean, as you said, Russell, we're not just talking about Macmillan's platform, because if you're using a course book, most likely that's from a publisher who's also developed software like this. So if you are using a course book, you will have access to a very usable, as in sort of user-led design of a platform.
Yeah, and also, sorry, Karen, how are you gone? Please.
I was going to say, I just want to pick up something that Sana said in the chat there. And, you know, some parents do complain a lot about, you know, why haven't we done this page? Why haven't we done that page? And I think the digital platform actually really helps that, because you have the solid evidence. You have it, you know, you have it there that page has been done. You know, it actually has been done. Maybe it hasn't been written in the course book, but it has been done because, look, bam, here's the data.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think one thing to keep in mind as well, often particularly when you use a course book, you know, you might be using that course book for 3, 4, 5 years, or often adoptions take 5 years. So let's say you put the initial investment into learning the platform. Well, then that's it now. For the next 5 years, you'll be able to work with that platform, work with that book. And, you know, so it's going to really pay dividends in the long run. And it's that these tools, as Will says, they're not that complicated. They're pretty, all right, they're a little bit tricky at the beginning. It's just because you're not familiar with it. But really, they are laid out and organized in a completely logical way. And, you know, the key thing is they know you want to set homework. They know you want access to the audios, to the videos, to the exercises. You know you want to track the data. And those things, it normally does very well and very easily.
Absolutely. So how long are we talking? How much time are we talking about here, Russell? Or let's say a teacher who's never used a platform like this before, how long would it take?
I honestly think you probably need to sit down, unless you're really good with technology, probably for a couple of hours, and just work around it, and maybe log in as a student as well. So you set up your class, and you might log in as a student on another browser or perhaps on your phone, just to see so you kind of see both views or of the system. Some of these systems even allow you to jump between, so you can be logged, you can create an account as a teacher, and then actually look, well, what does that look like as a student, because it always looks slightly different.
Right.
But I really think that the initial investment is well worth it. It really is worth it. If I was going to say to anyone where to start, it's there. It goes with your book. It's got all the content, all the audio, all the video, all the exercises.
Yeah.
Get your students logged into the class. Boom, you're away. They've only got to log into one thing. It's all there. We're not multiply, the students often complain, oh God, we've got to log into another application. So that's another big benefit. I could go home at night with the book in Poland and just log in, boom, there it was, all that material all in one place.
Absolutely.
And we did have one teacher earlier. Sorry to interrupt you again there, Will.
Good.
We had one teacher earlier who was using this, and they said that it only took them, 15 minutes to get used to it, because they are moderately digitally literate. So, it can take anywhere, as Russell said, between 15 minutes, or maybe it'll take you 2 or 3 hours. But, I'm sure we've all spent more than 2 or 3 hours on our mobile phone just mindlessly browsing anyway, probably today. So
exactly. Very true. Very true.
So Nadia has asked if we can share the benefits slide again. While we do, so Russell, if you wouldn't mind sharing a slide, let's move on to part 2, if you're all right, to principle 2. And if you could just go back to that slide again, I think so.
I can do that.
Can take a picture of this. It's a really helpful slide. If you want to take a picture of this slide, we will be sharing them with you, so you'll get them in the virtual goodie bag.
So these were the benefits that I kind of tracked, and I think there are more, but these were for me the most obvious ones. And I was trying to look at the ones that really kind of good, or work both for the student and the teacher. Because don't forget, there are benefits on both sides. Yeah. So, range of materials connected to the book, immediate feedback, extra materials, easy to set homework, easy to track, formative assessment. It's a great way of evaluating what your students are doing. Are they following your lessons, etc. Okay.
On a macro level, you can see where's the class.
Exactly.
Level.
Yeah, exactly. And on an individual level as well, definitely. Okay, is that enough time, Will? Should I move on?
Absolutely, mate. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's crack on.
So point number 2 is quite an interesting one, and it almost carries on with the same story, and that's make sure the students know the technology. And in fact, at this particular course that I did, and this was the first time I'd ever experienced this, and it was such a good idea, we took an hour out of our session. In fact, I think it was an hour and a half. It was actually a little bit longer, but let's say it was an hour and a half out of our lessons, because I was on an intensive course where we went into a room and we simply learned to use the platform. The teacher created a class, we all logged in, and we went through a series of activities to get really familiar with where everything was as a student. And that was brilliant. And I think it really helped the students in my class. And I have to say, not everybody was doing the homework all the time, but, most of us were very motivated. We were in Poland, we were making the most of this time to learn the language. And we were going home, and I certainly was going home and making quite a lot of use of the platform, because I found it really useful. I'm not saying it's where everything ends and that there aren't other things that you'd be interested in using apart from the platform, but I think it is a really good starting point. But it does require, we often call this onboarding, getting the students familiar with the technology, so that, when you set an activity for them to do, they know how to do it. They go home and they do it. And I think sometimes we make that mistake of presuming that the students are going to know the technology. Okay, I've set up a Quizlet activity, but I think if you haven't really made it clear to students how to work with Quizlet and what they need to do, often they're not familiar with these technologies. So I would definitely make sure that the students know the technology. And of course, it also means the teacher needs to know the technology. I think there's a very strong relationship between the teacher as well, knowing a technology, and their ability to transfer that to the students and get the students enthused, but also their creativity. I think teachers become much more creative. This is certainly my experience. When they use the technology a lot and they get familiar with it, they start thinking of new ideas and new ways to make it. So that's my second point.
So just to respond to one point there, specifically, Russell, you're speaking about the teachers getting used to it so that students can see them being used to it. But also, I suppose, teachers getting used to it and therefore becoming excited by it and motivated themselves to use this platform because they know that it's really helpful and cool, and it helps improve the learning process. Students seeing teachers getting enthused and really enjoying using it when they're introducing it to their students, I expect that's going to be pretty important in terms of getting the students buy-in, right?
Absolutely. And I think that, well, that's actually almost going to lead into our third point, to be honest with you, Will. But I mean, certainly, I think there is, you've got to believe in this. I mean, I think that it really is important that you think, yeah, this is going to be beneficial to my students. I'm going to push forward this. This is an important thing. This is really going to make a difference in the classroom. And so I do believe that often, that's sometimes where the problem begins sometimes. So a teacher adopts a technology or adopts an idea, but they're not completely convinced themselves. It's very difficult then to convince the students of the merits of a certain technology or a certain idea. Now, my belief is that these platforms open up a world to students that they wouldn't have had access to, certainly when I started teaching. This would have been impossible. There was just no access to this kind of material. And, not all students are going to respond. We know not all students are motivated to do that, but some will. Some will massively benefit from the fact that you have opened up this world. You've taken the time to learn the technology yourself, and then show that to the students and open up an opportunity for them to say, right, okay, we've done a lesson today, but I want to learn a little bit more. Or I want to listen to that audio again, or I want to revise that vocabulary, or do an activity or a game related to what we've done. And that opens up a world. And that, I believe, that then leads to other opportunities as well.
I think that, again, taking that time and stopping and getting your students to know the software better and to really see the depth of it, that it isn't just, here's a simple homework for you, because, particularly within this platform, and I'm sure there is with others as well, there are challenges, there's extra practice, there are all these areas there that aren't necessarily essential, but they can certainly be something that's really useful. So yes, they've got their homework, you've got all your data, but there's other aspects of it as well. So getting in there and really, well, not getting your hands dirty, because you don't really want to get dirt on your mouse or anything like that, but getting involved and getting into it and really getting to know the platform is so important, because, as you say, if you just send them off and say, go and do that, assuming that because they can make a TikTok video, then they'll be able to do this, then it's just not going to work. And I know I asked this in our previous session, but I am going to ask you again. Do you think it would be useful for parents to have maybe a brief training session on the platforms? Because obviously the platform has a teacher walkthrough. So when you log in, it gives you a walkthrough. It shows you how to set up classes. It's all there done for you. So do you think it would be useful for parents to be onboarded as well?
Definitely. I mean, we talked about this earlier, and it's a big thing, in what we call the digital divide. A big factor in the digital divide is those children who have parents that can support them and can help them with the use of technology, against those parents who are not familiar with technologies and therefore can't support their children. And this is a really big factor. So if we can get the parents on board, then I think that that's really going to be helpful. So, we know it's a part of the digital divide. We know it happened during COVID as well. I mean, I think Will mentioned that in the previous podcast, that, a lot of students struggled because, though they're good at making TikTok videos, as you say, they're not necessarily very good at using technology in education and for learning purposes. And I think, therefore, if we can get the parents on board, I think, again, that's just going to add to this whole kind of feeling that this is the way forward and this is going to be beneficial to students. So I think it's really a good point. Yeah.
Just to respond to a question, I think from a question I know from Deborah. Can you set it up on an individual basis for one-to-one classes? I believe you can, but the student's going to need their code. They're going to need to be able to log into it themselves and access that platform. So they'll need their student's book, and you've got your teacher's book to access it. So long as you've both got your course book, you can access the platform.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Okay. Now I've got another story for you with point 3. So I came back after living in where Harry lives, actually. So after living in Spain for 11 years, I came back to Britain in 1999, and I switched over. While I was doing my master's degree, I taught Spanish. And I was obviously very enthusiastic to start to use technology because I was doing a master's degree in multimedia learning. I wanted to experiment and try out different ideas. And one thing that I did with my students was that I got them to record themselves speaking. Now, this is really interesting because I was doing activities in class that would get the students prepared, maybe looking at the vocabulary, even practicing, preparing their little presentations. You know, it might be just talking about their daily routine or something like that. And then the students would do the recordings at home. The first time I ever did it, I think I had 14 or 15 students in the class. One student did the recording. So a total success. Just
Absolutely,
one,
man.
yeah.
You can't ask any more than that.
One student. And, you know,
It's a legend.
yeah, and the thing was, it was interesting. Number one, I was kind of ready for it. I did expect, to be honest with you, a few more would have done it the first time around. But the thing is, I knew that particularly English people are often very reluctant to speak in class and to speak Spanish and to practice their Spanish. You know, they'll study the grammar till the cows come home, but they're very reluctant to speak. And I was opening up an opportunity for them to go home and on their own to do the recordings, and you know, they could do it multiple times and then send it to me. So I knew this was a good thing, and I just persevered. I just pushed the idea through. Because I do believe that where the language learners, often when it comes to learning English, particularly, you know, the students, it's their first language. So you've already learned a language or learned multiple languages. So you are in a position to know, well, look, this could be beneficial to you. This is going to help you. I mean, autonomy can also be about discovering and learning about, you know, different things that work with you on a personal basis. I understand that, but I also think that we as teachers have a certain amount of knowledge about how we learn a language and what seems to work. So I believed in that idea and I just pushed through a bit. And I remember what I did in that class was I took some time out of the lesson to play that recording. And I even remember the student's name because it was only one student, Roy. And then, you know, say to Roy, okay, just have a quick chat. What did you do for homework? How often did you record it? How did you prepare it? Do you think it was beneficial? Blah, blah, blah. And of course, I carried on with that idea and I did it again and again. And I really did get a lot of the students on board. I will never say that everyone was doing the recordings because they weren't. There were a couple of people that really just totally refused. But, you know, I managed to get 12 or 13 students on a fairly regular basis doing those recordings at home for homework. And then in class, we'd often analyze them. We'd look at the grammar. We'd highlight the best ones. We'd talk about what's the best way to prepare. And I found that really, really rewarding. So what I'm saying, I do think that, you know, when it comes to technology, and I think we touched on this a little bit, it is almost having that vision. Okay, this technology can open up a few really great opportunities for learning to take place outside of the classroom, particularly. And I think if you really embrace that vision and you've got that idea, then you're going to be persistent. You're going to push forward, even though, and it may happen with the platform, for example, that at the beginning, very few students do the activities. Don't give up. If you believe it's beneficial to the students, push on. Consistent and persistent. Consistent means as well, doing a one-off thing doesn't work. You do really need to make sure that if you're introducing something like the platform, that you use it on a fairly regular basis. So the students really understand this is part of the course. This is an integral part of what this teacher does. So consistent and persistent for me is really important.
I mean, that's going back to, you know, TEFL. You know, the TEFL course that I took is you've got to be persistent with some things. So especially with young learners, you've got to have a sense of, you've got more than a sense, you've got to have a routine. And seeing how my son is taught at his school here, there's routine everywhere. You know, if it's story time, they know exactly what's happening next. If it's after story time, they know exactly what's happening next, where they're going, where they need to stand, and everything needs to be routine. So outside of digital, that is already, I'm sure, within every teacher's here's practice, common on a day-to-day basis. But one point I made earlier, I'd like to make it again today in this afternoon session, is that I think with digital, especially if you're not a 10 out of 10 to that question that I said earlier about the integration of digital into your classroom, you've got to be pretty proactive with making sure that is a regular constituent, forget that word, a regular part of your class. If you're going to make sure that people are used to what you're doing and buy into it and be predictable as a teacher, you've got to be proactive to decide how you're going to introduce it in every lesson. Is that fair to say, in every lesson?
No, not at all. I wouldn't necessarily say that you're going to be bringing it into every lesson, because I think you probably build it up anyway.
Right.
You don't have to do that, I think, but you certainly would want to be, whatever you decide is a fair amount of use of the technology. Okay, so let's say once a week or twice a week you're accessing the platform. It depends, of course, how many classes you're having, etc. It doesn't have to be every lesson, but it has to be consistent. It has to be that the students very quickly, within 2 or 3 weeks, understand this is a part of our course. Our teacher will be referring to it, and it's integrated into what you're doing in terms of your lessons or your homework. How much you use technology. I mean, it's an interesting point that you've just made there, Will, because in the classroom, if you're a good teacher and you get set up and do pair work and group work and you make the most of the fact that the students are all together, I'm not sure that you need to bring a lot of technology into your lessons. I've never been an advocate of that, to be honest with you. Where I find technology interesting is in what we can get the students to do outside of the classroom. And we have to remember, at the end of the day, ultimately, languages are learned outside of the class. I mean, I'm on my 4th language now, and I've always had teachers for all the languages that I've learned. And the teacher that I've got now, absolutely fantastic. But it's really all those extra hours that I spend watching YouTube videos, doing exercises, reading, studying vocabulary. That's really where the language learning takes place. And that's where I think these technologies are really interesting. They open up a world that just didn't exist 20 years ago. If I think of the way that I learned my first language successfully, which was Spanish, completely different to the way I'm learning Polish now. I mean, it's chalk and cheese because of the access to technology I've got. And I think that's the interesting thing. You're a good teacher. You don't necessarily need to bring a lot of technology into your classes. I think, you've got the students, you've got pair work, you've got group work. Maybe you're going to use video. Video is very effective, but apart from that, not necessarily.
I think as well, when we look at the, only one person did the homework, or, only 7 of my students have done the homework on the platform. Then think about how many of your students would have done the homework had it been in the workbook. Because it probably would have been 3 of them, and then in the hallway outside, then 5 of them would have copied, and then the rest of them would have written it down as they were sitting in the classroom. So don't be disheartened if you don't have the whole class all doing the homework, because guess what? The whole class is never all going to do the homework.
Really good point. Excellent point. Very true.
We've had a large comment here from Stannard. I think they've done so much typing, it's definitely worth mentioning. So they're talking about kind of reasons why parents might be disinclined to get involved with this process alongside the teachers. So my students are young learners. They have online homework platform, which is supposed to be monitored by the parents. Problem is, parents aren't motivated to handle it. Although they did a demo, the parents come up with lots of excuses as to why they can't do that at home, and they don't want to. Any responses to that, Russell?
Well, I mean, that's definitely a problem. There's no doubt about that. I mean, essentially, at the end of the day, I mean, obviously, you want the parents on board if you can, but essentially, at the end of the day, it's you and your students that are doing the learning. And really, it's the students that you want to get on board. If you can get the parents on board, it's definitely going to help. There's no doubt about it. But obviously, what you want to do is bring that platform into your teaching and learning and make it an integral part of your lesson. That's really the message that you're trying to put over. And what you're trying to do really is open up a world to them, a world that now exists where they could go off and make use of the technology and other technologies, like I showed you today, natural readers, that can allow them to do things in language learning that they could have never have done 20 years ago. It's just simply a different world.
Yeah.
I think sometimes teachers get a little bit worried about technology and think, oh God, it's going to undermine me. I think that's a bit wrong, because I call it the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is what the students do outside of the class. I was teaching English in the 1980s in Crete, and what could I set for homework? Oh, do exercise 2, 3, and 4. Study this list of words. Now what can I do? Well, I can say, well, watch this video, listen to this audio, do this exercise. You're going to get immediate feedback. Record yourself speaking. It's just absolutely crazy if I was to compare language learning now to just 30 years ago. It's a revelation.
Well, pedagogically as well, what you do, the list of vocabulary is improving outside of digital,
of course. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just aware we've got 8 minutes and we've got 2 more points to make.
We need to move on to number 4.
Let's go.
Okay, number 4.
Let's do this thing. Thanks so much for your comments, everybody. Just one quick comment, actually, I just wanted to make. Sorry, someone did mention something up about Malika. What about students with special needs and learning disabilities? I've got one comment to that. So the European Accessibility Act is coming into force next June, and that's across Europe. And quite often with these things, it does also distribute to other places in the world. And that is that publishers, not teachers, publishers need to make their materials accessible to everyone. Quite literally, everybody with any need or disability needs to be able to access these course books. So I know Macmillan, for example, is doing a lot of work to make sure that is possible by June of next year. So there'll be ways that you can, for example, change the size of any font, change the font itself, change the layout of the page so that it's accessible to any students. So that's my response to that. Anything else to add, you two?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting that often these platforms actually improve accessibility because they have things like the ability to make the fonts bigger and smaller, which obviously you can't do in a book, or to increase the size of an image, or to even have the text read out on the screen.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends, but often these, and as you've said, you know, people are, or publishers certainly are becoming more and more aware of this. Yeah. So in many ways, and also the other thing is that, you know, if you've got problems with internet and it's irregular, often with these platforms, you can download the content. And so you've got it locally on your computer. So therefore, you're not restricted if you haven't got an internet connection at a certain time of day. And when I've worked in countries where that often happens, and the tech, you know, you haven't got 24-hour access to technology. So that's another useful thing about these platforms.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We've got to move on. I shouldn't. I just wanted to reject that. Let's go.
Yeah,
for it.
that was a really good point. So a key one for me is, and I'm sorry about the image, I couldn't find anything to really convey
It's
this.
perfect. You apologized earlier. It's I love a good Satsuma. Everyone loves Satsumas.
So the point I'm trying to make here, and it's kind of 2 points really. You start small. So Will, you mentioned, will you use the technology every lesson? Maybe you don't at the beginning. Maybe you're only doing it once a week. You don't have to, you know, I remember when I started introducing blogging, I made it a regular thing that students had to do. But it wasn't something I was asking them to do every single week. It was like every 2 or every 2 weeks, I used to get them to kind of write up a short blog. Now, that's the first thing. You build it up. Your confidence builds up. You get better at using the platform. You start thinking of new ways to use the platform. You start even moving from setting it for your homework to actually connect it into your lessons, and maybe even doing things where you get the students to do some homework where they watch a video and prepare some notes and then come straight into the class and talk about that, or doing a discussion or a debate based around what they've watched on the video, or maybe they share vocabulary or answer some questions. So you begin to really connect the two parts of the class. But it probably wouldn't start like that. It'll probably start with you being very reticent and setting a few pieces of homework, and then just maybe reviewing the results, which you can do really quickly, and then giving some feedback to the students. So it really evolves, and I think the longer it goes on, you get more and more confident. And I think also from the students' point of view, don't start too big because you might put them off. If you're telling the students to go online tonight and do one exercise, it's quite likely they might do it. If you tell them they've got like 24 exercises to do, it's unlikely they're going to jump on and do it. So start small and build it up, and build it up until you feel you've got the right amount of digital to non-digital. Remember, you know, all the traditional ways of learning are also great. No one's saying that they're not useful. Okay,
yes.
There's loads of creativity in ELT. Yeah, we were talking about Inside Out, what a creative book, loads of photocopyable materials. We still want to make use of that content. Where I really believe this is going to have an impact is outside of the class.
I think that segues quite nicely to number 5, don't you?
Good point, Harry.
Okay, let's jump in there because we are running out of time.
We are running out of time. Yeah, we do have to sort of blast through the last couple.
So learning has changed. And in the way that I believe learning has changed, and really what I think I'm saying here, and this is where this kind of 5 steps into technology, because what we're really trying to do is open up a world to students. And that world could include other technologies as well, not just the platform, natural readers, Wordwall, you know, TurboScribe, these other technologies that we can use. But ultimately, language learning takes place outside of the classroom. We can help as teachers. We've got an important role to play, but maybe our role is changing more and more. And we've got to empower our students, and we've got to have knowledge of these useful technologies that we can then pass on to our students and empower them, whether it's using Quizlet, whether it's using the platform, whether it's using natural readers, whether it's being familiar with YouTube and learning all the different features that are in YouTube. We've got to kind of shift a little bit, and I call it planting seeds. Planting seeds, doing things with technology in the classroom that will allow students then to flourish and to go outside of the class and make use of natural readers because you've introduced it in the lesson. Make use of this platform because you've introduced it in this lesson. Make use of Quizlet because you've introduced it in the lesson. And I think ultimately that's our goal. So for me, autonomy, the opportunities for autonomy are greater than ever.
Thank you so much, Russell. That sounded like a planned presidential speech, by the way. That sounded wonderful. Can I just, you listed out so much stuff there. I just want to put one list in the chat box of some apps that you'd recommend. So you mentioned Padlet.
I want to hear more about TurboScribe.
Hold on a minute. We will go into that in a minute. Yeah, TurboScribe.
Okay.
In a minute.
Okay, so I would top 5. Okay, if we're talking about, well, certainly Padlet.com, absolutely amazing now. The AI that's been introduced into it, absolutely groundbreaking. I mean, if you go to my website, you can see all these technologies. I really encourage people to learn more about YouTube. You can get the transcripts in YouTube. You can download those transcripts. You can control the speed of the video. You can search for specific videos. You can do so much with YouTube. Definitely WordWall. I think it's the outstanding formative assessment tool with about 30 different games, really good technology. Natural readers, superb. And then TurboScribe is one I love because really it's a free tool. You can go onto TurboScribe, take any YouTube video, paste it in. It will do 2 amazing things.
Go for it. Russell, show us. We got 1 minute.
Really quickly.
Let's go for it. Let's go for a screen share.
All right. Okay, so look, if I jump over to TurboScribe, and I think I've got it here on the screen.
While you're doing it, Russell, just so you know, everyone, I'm just trying to note those down. You can probably, I'm sure pretty easily just Google those. Padlet.com, YouTube.com.
Okay, I'm going to just quickly open my dashboard onto TurboScribe. I am absolutely addicted to this technology because what it does, and if I just click on this last one here, and I didn't, then I'll quickly show you. You paste in any video from YouTube, it will extract the text, and it will extract the audio, which you can then actually download. Okay, so for example, this is the one that I did a little while ago, on the 24th of August. But if I click here, it will read it out and it will play it for me. All I did was add the link in. I can even download it. Now, this is fantastic because when I'm studying Polish, again, I can take any video from YouTube. I've got the transcript. If there's any words I don't know, I can just copy them and quickly go into Google Translate and check them. So I love working with this technology. It's one of my favorite technologies, again, for formative assessment, for autonomy. But notice, look, you can download the audio. Why is that useful? Well, you might have a YouTube video, but in class, you haven't got a very good internet connection. You want to work with the YouTube video, but you can only work with the audio, not the actual video. You can download it. How does it work? It's so simple. You get 3 videos a day of up to 30 minutes. You literally click on transcribe file, and I'll do it for you now. I'm just going to copy. Let's quickly get a video, this one. Let's see if I can get a really quick one. So a little hint here, guys. If you click on filters, you can actually filter for videos that are, say, for example, very short. So let's say this one here. I'm going to click on this one, all right? I'm going to copy this. So all I do is copy that link at the top, come back to TurboScribe. I'm going to paste that link in. Guys, this works in loads of languages. Click on import. Just takes a few seconds to bring the video in.
No
Okay,
way.
Absolutely crazy. All right, and that's ready. And now I can choose the quality, but Dolphin normally works good enough. Click on this button here, guys. It's not only going to transcribe that whole video for me, which I can then, of course, copy the transcription and use it to make gap fill activities or whatever, but it's also going to download the audio. And look how fast it works.
No way.
Do 3 a day for free. There it is, guys. I've done it. Look, we've got
Don't
the whole
believe it. Don't believe it.
Unbelievable.
You staged it. This is a stage.
Look at that. Look at that, the whole transcript. I could play it back by clicking on this button here. And I, of course, can download the audio if I just wanted to work with the audio file in class with my students. That is, for me, absolutely super duper. And it's right up there.
That is gold. I mean, for a teacher.
Oh, it's so good.
That is absolutely, I can't believe it.
The book.
I've never seen that. I've never seen that. You couldn't show it this morning because we didn't have time.
Back to the scripts. Oh, I remember all those times going back in the book, go look at the scripts. Oh, no. Do it with any video now.
Just
could
do funny
go-
videos. I'm doing
And
it
I
all
love
the
that
time.
audio idea. You've got your own
Transform
any
Got the
audio you
audio,
like, and then stick
exactly.
that audio in ChatGPT, and you've got yourself a whole load. You just say create 5 activities
Exercise on the
or a
back of
decent
it.
prompt.
Absolutely. Start connecting these AI technologies together. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, it's just a godsend. It really is an absolute godsend.
And we
Brilliant.
could
They're
see,
all on my
actually,
website. They're all on teachertrainingvideos.com. If you want to just
and
go
we
there,
could
you'll see
see
them.
within there that it had a whole bunch of Polish stuff in there. So we know
Exactly. I'm
that
using it all
he
the
does
time.
actually use it.
I'm using it. It's amazing.
Okay,
Absolutely
so
amazing.
I've just put it in there, teachertrainingvideos.com. That is Russell's website. He is an absolute digital guru. I recommend strongly going to his website. He's got lots of free content, lots of free training content. You can also subscribe to get monthly lessons from Russell as well. But if you want to hear more from this guy, who I hope over this last hour is absolutely convinced that he knows as much as you could possibly really need him to know to help you sort of carry on your journey wherever you're at digitally, go there. I strongly recommend it. All right, so we're going to have to cut things off there, you two. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a few things to say. I've got something to say.
You've always got something to say, Will.
Haven't I? Haven't I? I've always got something up my
Can we
sleeve.
say thank you to Russell first?
You can. I need to do something.
I'm gonna look up because I think it's up there. Thanks, Russell.
Thank you. No, it's great. Lots of fun. Really enjoyed being on the podcast with you both. Yeah, it's been lovely.
Absolutely.
You too, Russell. Why can't I find it? I can't find my screen share.
Will can't find
Elena,
his
if
screen
you can,
share,
it might be
see.
quicker for you to share it. For some reason, I cannot find it. Oh, there it
Okay,
is.
so is
I've got it. I've got it.
oh, he's found it. He's found it. It was there with his marbles.
There's a pronunciation lesson for you. It's found it. It's found it. It's found it. Don't worry, it's found it. Okie dokie. So I hope you enjoyed that session. And I hope you specifically enjoyed one particular section where we showed you Macmillan Education Everywhere, which is Macmillan's response to the need for digitizing learning. This year, we are slowly rolling out Macmillan Education Everywhere 2.0. So for the last X number of years, I think 6 years or so, we've had Me 1.0, which has worked really nicely. But as we all know, technology, hardware and software develops very quickly, especially when AI gets chucked into the mix. So earlier this year, we released Macmillan Education Everywhere 2.0. It is, we consider to be the apex of digital platforms when it comes to learning with your coursebook. Please do go and take a look at it. You can go to, I think there's a link somewhere here where you can learn more about it. You can see demos of it being used, and you can hopefully really see how absolutely easy it is. Out of interest, who here uses Macmillan courses? We open these webinars to everyone. So obviously, we're not just going to have Macmillan users here. Who here uses Macmillan? Great. So we have got quite a few good stuff. You've got Me. If you've got Macmillan coursebook, you've got access to Me 2.0. Most countries have got 2.0 now. Please do go and explore the page. And if you have not already used your code, please use your code. It doesn't cost you anything more. We just want people to use this platform because we really strongly believe it's going to enhance the learning experience for everybody. Back to school is the time of year for most of you, I think, which is why you're here. This session sits alongside a whole area of our website that we've created for this year, for 2024, which is digitizing your classroom. We've got some more articles in there. We've got some resources in there as well to help you. If you've got a Macmillan course and it's one that's sort of out now, not sort of a really old one, it will be on Me, but you should have a code with your book. Anyway, so go to this page on our website. You should see a link somewhere, and you can have a look at all the other resources you've got for back to school for you as well. So you might remember, does anybody remember this a couple of months ago? Put your hands up or say yes or say a smiley face or something. Actually, no, let's do emojicons. Only emoticons in the chat box. Have you heard of this? Hanny, hand up. I'm gonna guess hand up.
Do you mean emojis?
What did I say? Emoticons.
I said emoticons, like it was like 2006.
Why did I say emoticons? Email.
I'm trying to remember.
Okay. But everyone's saying, how did you hear about it? Okay. Cool. So this is a brand new initiative from us. We, a few months ago, invited anyone around the world to submit any talk they'd like, anything they're passionate and knowledgeable and experienced about, enough to deliver a talk on that subject. So we asked for a video and an abstract and a title. We had hundreds of submissions and they were wonderful. It was very time consuming. I'm going to be honest. It took about a week of watching through all these things with myself and my fellow judges. But we looked through them. It was a really enjoyable time. And we eventually took some time. We got down to these 11 talks. And I'd very much like to share them with you now. These are the talks that we're going to be talking about. 25th of September. You can register now. Not only are those talks, I feel, really wide, it's a huge array of different teacher training there, but also the way that these people delivered it. It wasn't just about the content and the subject. It was the people, it was the trainers themselves and how they presented themselves and came up and presented their ideas. It's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to do it. And if you want to register, you can. Now, I think the link should be somewhere on the screen.
Oh, it's us.
The Waters.
It's me and you. And there's just me. This is our podcast. This is our podcast. This is actually not a webinar that you're watching right now. It is a live podcast. You were here. You were involved. The first ever live podcast. You can tell your children, your grandchildren, I was there for the first ever live advancing learning podcast. But there are more. There are many more. There are, in fact, 17 more podcasts, which you can find at the link that I just put in the chat, that range from smartphones to grammar to learning to love learning, and all of the things you could possibly hope for in the series of a podcast. They're all there, and there will be more in future, but for now you need to catch up. So head on over to a reputable streaming place where you can listen to them, or go straight to the website that I popped in the chat. I'll put it in there again. Look at that.
Or a disreputable one, if that's what you're using. If that's what you need to do, use a disreputable one.
Just whichever one you can put in your ears.
Lovely stuff. Cheers, Harry. A few people have asked, you're going to get an email within the next week, and that email will have 2 links in it. One link. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, you won't be getting a certificate. You won't be getting this email because you need to register for the event. We're doing this one more time later today. So if you do want to get this, you can register on the website, macmillanenglish.com. You can still register for we've got one more of these later on today, if you want to get this. But if you are watching this on Zoom, you will get an email with 2 links. One is to your personalized certificate, and the other is to a link to a virtual goodie bag. And that goodie bag will have, Russell's very kindly written up this session actually in an article form. So you'll have an article on his 5 principles in that goodie bag. There will be this recording. You'll be able to watch this again and again and again for as long as you like, and various other bits and bobs that we've got there for you. So look out for that. It's going to come within the next week or so. And I think that's it. We have overrun a little bit. I'm very sorry. We overrun by a few minutes.
Everyone.
But it's because there's so much to say, isn't there?
There is, and there was, and there always will be.
Wise words, Harry. Wise words.
Wonderful. Well, I'll catch you all on the flip side. Thank you very much for coming along. Lovely to see you. Oh, someone said thank you from Seville. So maybe, Isabel, I'll see you around the streets of Calle Sierpes and the Zetas and other wonderful places around here.
Thanks again to you, Russell. Wonderful stuff. Thanks a lot for putting it together.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of fun. Thank you very much.
See you all soon. Bye.
Ta-da.